Hi, everybody. So this is going to be the last video in my beginner copywriting series. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to go over the 4 questions that your copy has to address. So far in the series, we've gone over the basics of identifying your brand, your customer, doing the comparisons, and then going over the pre-writing questions, and then the basics of what to include when writing copy. And now this is the final part. Whenever you create your copy, you need to have these 4 elements. They're almost like a last minute checklist to just so that when you start creating your copy, just making sure that you address these items. They're not too fancy. These 4 items, basically these 4 questions, are not too, not too complex or anything like that. But they are something that you need to make sure your copy addresses. And again, this should be almost like a last minute checklist where you go through, you review what you wrote, and making sure that each of these questions are answered clearly for your audience. And so I'm going to begin by going over each one, and we'll start obviously with the first one. The first question that your copy needs to address is, what is your product? And remember, your customer / consumer may not know what the product is. And often when we write these sort of things, we write with a bias of already knowing what the item is, and we kind of forget that someone else may not have as much background on the item as we do, and that often when we write the copy, we write sort of with this bias of pre-understanding in mind. So that's the first one, is go through and just make sure that if someone completely new, your new customer or consumer, had read this, does it address what the product is? The second question is, what kind of person would want to purchase your product or service? This is just basically reiterating that you're and making sure that your copy is catering towards your ideal consumer. Third question is, are the features understood by your ideal consumer? So in other words, do you know all of the features that you're writing about, and are they clearly explained so someone else would know? Is there anything that seems ambiguous? Anything that you may understand, but your consumer, it's not written so clearly they may not? Just being aware of this will be helpful. And then the final item is, what problem is the product selling? In other words, if you read this for the first time, if you were just fresh, would your ideal consumer understand why they need the product, why they need the service, why this is going to be of benefit to them? All right. And so that is going to be it. Those 4, if you copy cancel those 4 questions, you are looking good. At this point, you sort of surpassed any kind of beginner level of copywriting, and at this point you're kind of going into the intermediate stages of this, where a lot of your skill is going to come just from experience, just with time and practice of doing it. As you can see, there's not a lot to it. Copywriting is a relatively simple thing in theory. It is as much, obviously, as an art as it is a sort of science, in that, I've tried to boil this down into a very step-by-step formula, but there's still an art to it. There's still a certain finesse in art. Somewhat, you have to sort of have an eye for being able to recognize good copy, being able to sort of take some of those stylistic abilities and then match your own content over that, or to that sort of style. But I do hope this helps. I do hope this series has been helpful in that it covers a good amount of what you are going to need to know if you are going to become a copywriter, or if you're looking to get a job as a copywriter, or you're just looking to do your first ever freelance gig. Just, you have no experience doing this, and so this is the first time getting into it, and maybe you're doing this like pro bono for a local organization just to build up your portfolio, or if you're going to be doing this for the freelance for the very first time for somebody else. Whatever the reason, if you can follow these prior videos, you'll be on your way. You will be right on track to creating your first copy, your first series of copy. And if you maybe you're a little more experienced and you're just looking to get maybe a bit of a refresher, I do hope this series has been helpful in covering and identifying your product and your consumer. All right. Starting next week, or starting tomorrow, I should say next week 'cause it's a new week. But starting tomorrow, I'm going to go back to my other videos here. But any kind of refresher, any kind of questions, feel free to leave it down in the comments, and I can definitely address them for you.